things that I've learned, the connections that I've made with people, that's been great. I wanted to make something cool. I wanted to make something that people would enjoy, and I wanted to make something that was totally different. And I can't wait to see how some of these guys hopefully use it. I want people to just like take this design, take the way I see it, the way it functions for me, and the type of movements and flow that I do with it, and then just like completely take their creativity and take it for however they want to use it.
There's several things you mentioned in your story that I want to dive into. The first of which, though, you had plenty of opportunities to quit. You had plenty of good reasons where no one would have faulted you from saying, you know what, this is too much work, or it's too expensive, or there's a lot, right? Why didn't you?
I would say two things. I come from, I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, and I went through like with sports and stuff. A lot of even like my closest friends and family don't like understand. Like I had a lot of like really serious head trauma when I was really young that I had to work through, and welding and fabrication was a big one for that, and the weight room was another one from that. And I always, I work with kids now, and I try to get across to them, that what like the weight room and training and things like that can teach you overall. And one of the big things is like just like the process for the Freebell was there's no replacement for just time. It's just like the time you put in will always correlate in a positive nature with everything. But the weight room is so nice because it's such a tangible thing. It's like you can just see it. Like I saw myself from when I snatched 95 kilos to when I snatched 152 kilos. And that was so many years in between. So I think that has always like ingrained in me that this delayed award thing, it's just like how much more meaningful that is when you see the years that you put in work. And I would say the other thing is like I grew up with my dad rebuilding classic cars and doing hot rods, and I build rock crawlers and stuff like that now. And the time you put into those, the years where you feel like you're doing nothing, sometimes where you step away for months at a time,
Yeah.
you just want to sell, but you're just like, no, you stick to it. When those types of things are finished, or when you start the engine for the first time, or you go for a cruise or whatever, that feeling is so similar to even hitting a big weight in competition. And I think like those lessons that I learned, and having these process-driven accomplishments that didn't take months, they took years and years and years, and having like a really good understanding of that even before I started this venture, which was completely out of my nature. Like the concept thing, like the idea, the concept, the training, the coming up with movements, like that's my zone. Like I live there. The business side, the lawyers, the patenting, the business plan stuff, that is so out of my norm that it would become frustrating. But I think through the lessons I learned, early in life, through all of these different things that I've done, just helped me have like a really good understanding of the process, and how you just figure out what is most important at that time, and you just dive into it and you go, and then you just move on to the next thing, and you just dive into it and you go. And before long you look back at the amount of work that you put in, and there's honestly nothing like it. And I think that's something missing for a lot of people, is that feeling. Like I wish everyone could have that feeling of the type of sacrifice and work and stress and everything that goes into it, and can look back and be like, man, like I killed that.
Yeah.
Like could have quit, but I kept driving, and it all worked out.
Yeah, and I think I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's like I tell people all the time, like I'm a gym owner who like actually doesn't care that much about like how much weight people lift or like how fast they run. It's because what you just said, right? I'm a massive believer that what it takes to be successful at anything in life can be learned in the gym just through sets and reps. Like you said, time under tension, persistence. You know, it's the
Yeah.
one thing that is going to lead to any success in your life. And it's in the gym, it's just like a really nice, easy, kind of safe place to experience that. But I always think it's such a shame when everybody makes their, you know, their strength and conditioning training just about how they look or like just about how strong they are, and they're missing the opportunity to do exactly what you've done, right? Let me apply this to something else that's also going to bring me some results and an outcome that I really want. So I just think that's super cool, and your story of persistence is really inspiring. I think because too many people, in fact, the majority of people have have great ideas and the skill to bring those into the world, and we never see or hear about these ideas because what they are missing is the toughness, the ability to deal with adversity, and see something through. So I'm so grateful that I'm even talking to you right now because you actually did. You have, or at least you're in the process of seeing this all the way through. You know.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, like you know, I get it. Like we were talking before the show. Like I have, I would say that I looked at equipment manufacturers and I looked at guys that built different things, and I always knew it was challenging, but I had no idea. Um, and I have a lot of respect for anybody who dives into being an entrepreneur and trying something completely different. One of the challenges of something like this when I was going through that process was like the fact that I had to keep it secret, because I think, people look to their peers. I had a few people that I could trust, but, I think when people have an idea or something like that, like their first instinct is like they want to go to friends and they want to get feedback, right? And then like that positive feedback will kind of feed you a little bit and give you some motivation to keep pushing forward. Here I was going through this patent process and hearing all these horror stories about things getting stolen in the fitness world. So I had to keep it like very, very locked up. So you're just kind of in your head, thinking about like, is this a good idea? Like, how would this work? Or like, what type of population, am I gonna like? Would this help? Like, what different is this going to be more rehabilitation, prehab? Is this a dynamic movement for general population? You have all these things that you're kind of trying to figure out on your own, and that was tough because of the fact that you have a little bit of anxiety about the fact that you have this, and it's like you start to do the process of kind of protecting it a little bit, and really didn't have I would say like no, I wouldn't say support. Like I could have had it if I wanted to, but I couldn't really even build that support behind the product until much, much later. And it's been really fun to hear some of the feedback from people I really respect, about like what they how they see the product going and how they're excited about it. And that's been like a really nice thing after all those years of kind of having to keep it to myself.
Yeah, I can imagine so. I also think in some ways, you'll hear some people say quotes like, I'm going to paraphrase this, but like, set big goals, don't tell anyone about them, and just go out there and do the work, right? You'll hear things like that. And I'm not always an advocate of that, if I'm being honest. But I think there's benefits to that, right? Like, because some of those people you trust and you care about and who care about you, to protect you might have said, oh, Thomas, I don't know, like all these bad things could happen. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. And they could have talked you out of it. So there's probably some benefit, not because they don't love you and not because they don't want to see you win in a big way, but they also didn't, they maybe want to save you from potential pain, right? Um, so I think that that's kind of a cool part of your story. Like maybe that patent process kind of like helped you to be persistent because you didn't have anyone in your ear trying to talk you out of it, you know?
And the few people I had were really local. And it's like, that's an interesting point because, I came from small town Nebraska. My dad was a railroader, which, and I think like the mindset in a smaller town is just different. It's like you get your 9 to 5 and there's nothing wrong with it because it gave me a really great life and a really great childhood. Both just working class parents in a small town. But I always knew that I needed to do something different. I right out of high school, I got hired at the Union Pacific, and not long after, I was fired for insubordination. And I knew right then that I wasn't going to be a corporate guy. Like that just wasn't in my DNA. And but I think still growing up in a small town, you still have that mindset, right? You're still like that. I have to grind. I have to save. Put it back, like just be safe, don't know what the world's going to do or whatever. And a huge benefit to living in Jackson Hole, Wyoming is I am surrounded by the most successful of successful people, not just in the country, but in the world. And they don't blink an eye when you talk to them about launching a business or doing a startup or investing or whatever. They're like, yeah, do it. Like, this is what you have to do. And that's the other thing. I don't know if I would have ever done it if I didn't live in this area. Because the few people that I had talked to, like the really close friend of mine, a guy named John Robinson, he was like, right off the bat, like, do it. Like, you got to do this. And because honestly, the people around here, they just think differently.
Yeah.
Like, these are, they're successful. They invest their money in crazy places. They do all these startups. They treat it almost like a game.
Yeah.
They gamble with almost everything. And that's why they're at the place they're at. It's because of that. And both Samantha and I have met a lot of people around here that have been ultra supportive in like, you just got to do this. Like, don't go small, just dive in, go big. And through that process, I think it totally changed my mindset on this. And it was just like, because having a 16-month-old, like it could be really easy to be like, to start look at, lawyer bills or whatever. Like, people don't understand, like when you're like starting a business with a manufacturer, it's like they have to write contracts for me. They're writing contracts for manufacturing, contracts for shipping and distribution, contracts for disclaimers that are going to go in there, trademarks, patents, like all of this. And it could be really easy to be like, man, like this, I just can't risk this with my daughter at home. This is just crazy. I gotta just save this. I gotta put it in a 401k, I gotta start saving for college or whatever. It could be really easy to do that. It could be really easy to do that right now.
Yeah.
But those people, and then number one, my wife was just like, at this point, she wouldn't even let me quit. Like, she was always, because she's the one that hears me at home when I'm like, gosh, like, what am I doing? Is this like, because everybody has those moments, no matter how motivated or like entrepreneurial or whatever you are, I think everybody has those moments. And she's like, I don't care. She's like, I don't care if we ever see another, like a cent out of this. I don't care if any of that money comes back, all of this will be worth it. And like, so I don't know what I would do without her in my corner, just being like, you got this.
Yeah.
Like, whatever we have to do to do it, like we'll just make it happen. It doesn't even matter. It's just money. This is like your dream. She believed in this. She always thought that it would be successful. And so I feel like with her, with the people in this community that just have that mindset, it totally changed even my mindset from being like a small town kid, like the 9 to 5 type of guy to a much more of like an entrepreneurial, risk-taking venture. And it's been a challenge the whole time. Like it almost feels a little unnatural at times, but it's just like every time you get into one of those places that feels a little uncomfortable, a little unnatural, I feel like you start to grow, and it's, they say like the smaller your world is, the bigger your problems. So like when you start to like branch out of this, just like I got my small, like I'm in my box, right? Or I got my clients or whatever, and I go and I hit my clients and I go home and I write my program and boom, and like all these little things seem like huge, right? Like every little thing, like, like men can be like really, really reactive, like react. When we start to get out there and it's like all of these things and you're like, your world starts to expand and you're doing like overseas manufacturing and you're working with all these people, it's like the little stuff, you're just like, whatever, like you just kind of like, you brush it off. And it's been great from like a growth standpoint for me personally too.
Yeah. And man, it's just like your story right now, the more you tell the story, none of this I knew before we got on this call. Like I'm hearing it as everyone else is hearing it right now. And it's like the perfect example of like what I want for everybody, right? Like I want people to have, you mentioned, a sense of purpose, something that they're like bigger than themselves that they're working towards, to have like these optimized habits, like you've shown, the things that kind of like the daily in and out things that you do every day to kind of bring this all to the world. The meaningful community, the relationships that you had, even though you couldn't tell everyone about it, you had meaningful relationships. The people who were close to you, who you trusted, they trusted you. And like you said, you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with, for better or worse. And that really is a part of this story. And then the big part of it is self-actualization, right? Like the process of stretching and growing yourself to just find out what is my fully expressed, free, like most unchained version of myself like look like. And it might not, I mean, like, let's not like also like this Freebell endeavor that you're doing right now is amazing, but it might not be the end all be all. You might move on to something else, or you might shift gears at something else. But no matter what, it's always going to be a part of your story that helped you to grow and be free and creative and unchained. And it's just like such a cool, amazing story to sit here and listen to, man.
Yeah, and it's been, and like you talked about, like the process of like the whole process of this, like no matter where that ends up, I think about that all the time. I mean, the things that I've learned, the connections that I've made with people, that's been great. But my focus of this the whole time, like I wanted to make something cool. Like I wanted to make something that like people would enjoy, and I wanted to make something that was totally different.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just like take something that was a fixed weight and make it a loadable weight. Like, I wanted it to be like something that, like I've talked to a few people recently about like one of the parts I'm most excited about is like seeing the creativity of, I see it all the time with like kettlebells and dumbbells and, people that, what they'll do with movements, whether it's like the Marcus Feelys of the world or whatever. Like, I think that's so cool, coming from a guy who, I can't really do Olympic weightlifting like I used to. Like, I think everybody's body like has, kind of has their limit, and I can't lift, like the big barbell stuff like I used to. And that's where like the single arm stuff and these different implements have become such a big part of the way I train. And I see it all the time, like with guys my age that are late 30s, early 40s that are getting to that point. And I can't wait to see how some of these guys hopefully use it. Like I want people to just like take this design, take the way I see it, the way it functions for me, and the type of movements and flow that I do with it, and then just like completely take their creativity and take it for however they want to use it.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that for years, about like, man, like if it gets in the hands of some of these guys, like I've seen some of these guys, the way they move with kettlebells and dumbbells, and I can't wait to see the way they move with the Freebell.
Yeah, it's going to be super, super cool. I can't wait to see it either. Just like knowing a little bit of your story and getting to catch it at this point of the story. You're 100% right. I'm in the middle of reading the book, Rick Rubin, the Creative Act, or A Creative Act, and he talks a lot about this, right? Like the process of being creative, and I don't actually consider myself a super creative person. So I have so much admiration for people who are artists and designers and like you know, fabricators and all these people who just make things with their hands and their minds. So so as we're bringing this to a close, tell people out there who like how they can find the free, you know, what's next for the Freebell, how can they support, they're going to hear this story and they're going to want to support you. So like what is, you know, how can they help you out? Where can they learn more about your product, all that good stuff?
Thefreebell.com, and the Freebell is pretty much everywhere, like at the Freebell. Most of our stuff will be Instagram. There's an email sign up on thefreebell.com that people can sign up, and that'll kind of give you, that'll start once we get a newsletter going and give you updates on like when the first order goes. First thing that we'll be putting up is just like some swag, and that'll go along with our launch and along with our initial orders, which there will be like a discount for our initial launch and the pre-orders. And then we'll be running a contest where we'll be selling a bunch of apparel, and that'll enter you for a contest to win. We'll give like 3 prizes. We'll give like a full set away, and then like a pair and like a single type of deal, to where we can get some of these out to some people and get some movement. And you know, one of the things that our big focus is education. You know, being a coach, you know, I worked for USAW. I taught my own seminars. I created like my own style of coaching Olympic lifts, and that was like a great venture for me on my seminars. I really enjoyed that. I worked for CrossFit weightlifting for a little while. So like education is like really important to me. It's a passion of mine. And I think with the product that's so new, and it's going to move a little bit differently than people are used to, I want really high quality education out there. So we're starting the Freebell Academy, which will be an online training source. We'll be doing a bunch of stuff through the Freebell Academy Instagram. Just as simple as like the concept around the way you move with a Freebell is similar to an Olympic lift, but a lot of people don't do like even the Olympic lifts. I feel like people really don't grasp the concept of it very well.
Yeah.
You know, it's really complex. It takes years and years to do. The Freebell has a much shorter learning curve, but I mean, something as simple as like a snatch, right? Like I want to get out like education for everyone on like how to properly do this, because you know, one of the big components of the Freebell is because of the offset weights, because of the spinning handle, you're able to create a much straighter weight path than you would with a typical weight, because you can have a delayed turnover. Like in weightlifting, right? Like they always say elbows high, bar close, lift the shirt, right? And then we can turn over really late. And you can do that because you have a spinning bar, right? If you are actually having to rotate the weight, you have to start your turnover earlier, which kicks the bar away from the body, which puts you in a vulnerable situation, right? And that's the way, even though it's not much, with a heavy dumbbell, you still have to turn the weight over. And with a kettlebell, you have to rotate the weight. When a Freebell snatch, the weight needs to stay static. You're trying to keep it still if you can, and then you're turning it over late, right, with the handle and stabilizing it. And so you're not actually having to move the weight. Now, if the weight moves, that feedback, that is what will tell you what happened, right?
Right.
Like if it gets away from my body and I turn into more of like a round curve for my bar path, that weight will be moving when you're in the overhead position. So it's giving you instant feedback on your actual bar path. It's also giving you what kettlebells and dumbbells don't do, and it's feedback on the coordination of the catch, right? So the timing of a catch. We see it all the time with like a dumbbell snatch, to where they pull it, and it's almost like it's about to pull their shoulder up top. They just pull it as hard as possible, right? You can't do that with a barbell either, right? Because it'll screw the timing up so much of it. That's what we talk so much about, timing your lockout with when your feet hit the ground, right? And the actual deceleration, which is just as important as acceleration on any movement. It's how you decelerate.